27th, 2020. Beautiful 98-degree hot sunny summer day. Let the chicks out here late afternoon, do some scratching and pecking and foraging. They're getting big, moving fast. Love it. So we'll take a look at the potted plants quick. Olive is starting to really take off. I've been paying more attention to watering it. This rosemary, same. And I got all the weeds out of it. Lemon tree is doing okay. Turmeric is just blowing up. Oh, and look at that. We got flowers coming on. Haha. Awesome. These turmeric flowers are so beautiful. Cool. Just noticed that now. Mandarin's doing okay. Sweet potatoes I still haven't gotten into a bed. Probably just put those into a big bin and carry them over into the greenhouse at this point. Fig tree is cranking. That had another good foliar drench. I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe 6 nights ago when I did the foliar drench on everything else. Well, drench and inoculants and biostimulants, so it got the works. In fact, all these potted plants did. They used the flush from a foliar feed on the tomatoes and basils and stuff. Avocado's cranking. Lemon tree's doing good. Some of these lemons are starting to ripen, and actually it's putting on some new flowers now, so that's encouraging to see. Rosemary is rocking also, very much loving the feeds. Oh, that's wonderful. Alright, we'll go take a look at what I've been working on and why you haven't seen too many videos lately. So I got most of the potato row weeded a couple of days ago. I got maybe a 15-foot section left on the far end there to do. So those are doing okay. This amaranth or pigweed or whatever you call it is the stuff that I've had come up everywhere around here and become quite an invasive weed. The upswing on that is it pulls out fairly easily in the right soil moisture conditions, and because it's such a broad leaf, it actually makes a nice mulch on the ground in the place where you pulled it. And it's not like the quack grass and some of these other weeds where if you leave it out, the root will find its way back in the soil and it'll re-root itself. When you pull it, it pretty much dies back. So I end up using it as mulch and recycling the nutrients from it. So that's kind of handy. That's not what I've been doing for days, though. Tomatoes are doing okay. They're really starting to take off into this frame building phase. So that's exciting and encouraging. I see some flowers starting to come on. My last foliar drench, I included a little bit of Accelerate in that. To help support complete trace mineral and hormonal nutritional support for flowering and fruiting and all those biological processes that have to happen. Want them to happen at the most accelerated rate and be fully supported. And so you can see these are starting to really get big, and it's about time for me to start clipping these up with tomato clips and training them up to the trellis here. That must have been a volunteer. I'm pretty sure that's a crimson beefsteak tomato. So that's awesome. Let's see, over here we have the basils, large leaf, sweet Thai, and holy basil. Those are growing at quite a clip, doing really well. I irrigated this a little bit last night, not real heavily, but reasonably well. Just trying to keep it moist in here. I also put down actually, we can see the seeds popping here now. Another row of large leaf basil on this side, between the large leaf and the sweet Thai. Boom, boom. And another row of sweet Thai on this side, between those two. And you can actually see those popping up as well. Bing, bing, bing. And then the large leaf over here. Bing, bing, bing. So that'll be another round of basil in here to fill in as these, you know, go on into the next stage of their life cycle. I probably will do a seed run on all 3 of these basils this year. These are in a good plot soil-wise, and they've been in good nutrition and good care for the whole season, so I feel like pretty confident that I will have a very good seed run out of them and produce good seed from them. In this other row here, I'm just making this kind of a walking pathway, but I did go back with some extra holy basil seed pods that I had from last year and sprinkle down between, so they probably will come in here in some form or fashion as I weed and kind of walk along. On this side here, I seeded in a band, the width of the tiller width there, I seeded borage and dill, and I think I put something else in there, but I can't remember what. But anyway, so this whole block is seeded really heavily with mostly herbs, medicinal plants, and some cover crop. I seeded all the rest of the borage seed that I have, try and make a seed run on that this year as well, if it'll germinate. I don't know if that seed's any good anymore or not. But anyway, we'll see what happens. My friend Bob, KD2RFI, gave me some wildflower seeds, some cosmos, and then some wildflower mix seeds. The cosmos I just stuck in the end here. I think the seed is fairly old, so I don't know if it'll germinate, but if it does, it'll make a nice decorative dress to the row, and it'll give me some cosmos seeds for next year for propagation. Alright, so that's that part. Nothing doing in this section yet. Just not prepared to irrigate it yet. So I may just cover crop it with buckwheat or rye or a mix of the two. Or might throw some sunflowers in there. I'm not sure yet. Now, down here, we're cover cropping. This is seeded all to buckwheat. Down the edge is a row of bodacious sweet corn. I don't know if that'll make it or not. When I did the calcs on it, it says it would be done by October 13th. I don't know, we'll see. But I had the extra seed left over, and I usually don't use seed from the previous year for that kind of thing. So I just decided to plant it and use it as a cover crop, and who knows, maybe we'll get a late shot of sweet corn out of it. That row actually runs all the way up and then circumvents the rhubarb and then goes back that way a little bit because that's how much seed I had. There's also 2 rows of the big sunflowers that I have from my breeder friends in here, and then down the edge, on that edge, is Hawaiian orange marigold, and down the edge on this edge are those wildflower seed mixes that I got from my friend Bob, KD2RFI. So I seeded and drilled this all in, and then I irrigated it heavily the other night. And of course you can't tell today because it's been 90-some degrees and sunny the last few days. Well, so now on to the corn blocks, huh? So, the buckwheat is germinated and it's taken off. It's starting to really fill out a nice canopy and start to protect the soil better. The sunflowers are doing well. There's a row of those all the way down here. The sweet corn is doing well. I do have to go back and weed. I don't know if I'll get to that tonight. I'm having trouble getting everything done these days. And the buckwheat is coming in underneath here, but the amaranth is sort of out-competing it in this case. So I may have to go back and do some hand weeding just to give the buckwheat the advantage, because you can see how bad the amaranth has come in. It wasn't this tall 2 days ago. I should mention, you'll notice this whole block, all of it, is a much darker green now. I think it was Tuesday night that I did the foliar feed for this last, and when I did, I added the inoculants that I had forgotten to put in back in the spring, namely BioCoat Gold, Biogenesis, and Spectrum Extra. And I don't think Advancing Eco Agriculture sells Spectrum Extra anymore, so I would recommend Spectrum DS in place of that. But this greening up is basically from inoculants. That's what's really been added to it, and it makes a tremendous difference. And every time I forget and do it, and I come back in a couple of days and I see everything just darken green and do really well. I remember just how important that biology is. I talk about it all the time, and sometimes I forget to implement it. But this is another excellent reminder of where and how and why biology is so important. The couple squash that popped up that I left are doing okay in there. They're looking pretty happy. And the bodacious sweet corn is just starting to go to flower. We got a little bit of tassel starting to pop on here, and you can see we got our little corn ear embryos popping. And is that 1, 2, 3 there you're seeing maybe? I can tell you it is in other spots because I saw it when I walked by earlier. Yeah. 1, 2, 3 ears so far. Again, this goes back to nutrition and critical points of influence. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We'll see how that develops, but that's looking pretty promising. Sunflowers on this side are doing well. I guess in essence the corn blocks are doing well. I just got some weeding to do, and they probably could use some irrigation soon again, but spring supply is low. I actually ran out of water last night just as I finished irrigating the basil and tomatoes and sweet potatoes, so I gotta be conservative now. I put a lot of water out in the last few days after I planted that block. I also watered this, and I watered that, which we'll be going to next. But first let's look at this new curved block corn planting. That's doing really well. Incredible sweet corn on top, Silver Queen back past the halfway divider post. The squash that I planted here in the Coast of Maine soil cups is doing well, popping up and growing. And let's see what else. The buckwheat is obviously doing well in here, and the sweet clover is popping all over in here. I'm pretty sure this is the sweet clover cover crop, so that'll give us a nice biomass builder and a flowering crop next year for honeybees, as well as some soil structuring work and a bunch of other awesome benefits. Oh yeah, I guess I'll step over here and show you the sunflowers. The outside edge row here is all sunflowers. Those are doing well. Much better in here than over in there because I've been watering these more frequently. They really like a lot of water to get going on. At least here in our soil, which is a really dry soil, it drains really well. Alright, so let's go look at that other cover crop block that I planted. Okay, here we are over on this block. Well, this whole area was fenced in a couple of years ago with some plastic fencing a friend had given me. And it turns out the woodchuck just chews through the plastic and gets in. Same problem with the rabbits. So I ended up pulling the fence back down until I can get some good quality chicken wire type fencing to close this in with for cabbages and you know, the more delicate to critters crops. I've decided to just open it back up, and I figure I might as well build the soil while I'm here. So I've decided to cover crop all this. So I mowed everything off clean. From that mow off, I'm going to get a pretty good amount of mulch. That's going to go up to help with tomatoes and you know, other crops up top. Maybe help cover the potatoes up a bit with some mulch. And then there was garlic in here. I did not pull the garlic. They're kind of sad from all sorts of issues without going into long explanations. But I did mow everything clean. I figure we'll let those kind of hang out until fall. They'll probably come back in the fall, and we'll see how they're doing then. Meantime, I haven't planted anything in here yet, but I think I'm going to cover crop this and maybe even direct sow without tilling, either buckwheat or rye, or a combination of the two. I'm not sure which. But anyway, above that here where I've tilled, we have 6 rows of those huge sunflowers in here, about 30 per row. They're at 2-foot spacing. And then alternating blocks. We have buckwheat, rye, buckwheat, rye, buckwheat. And then around the edges we have Hawaiian orange marigold. So this is basically just aimed at cover cropping and supporting pollinators and building soils, and being beautiful as well, because if all that grows as I imagine it and envision it, it will be beautiful with rows of sunflowers and buckwheat and rye and Hawaiian orange marigolds. So that's what's going on in this block. I did a heavy irrigation after I drilled the seed in, and hopefully it will take off. It's probably going to need another shot of irrigation, although we have forecasted potential thunderstorms tomorrow, so I'm kind of hoping that we'll get those. And then let's see, this block down here, last I had grew something in here was peppers, and I plan to cover crop this as well. Probably we'll just put rye in this. The soil is decent in here. It's been worked for a number of years prior to this, and in fact this had blue corn in it probably 5 or 6 years ago. So I'll probably just rye cover crop it and knock out the other weeds, and then I'll probably roll that down in the spring and just plant right through the rye as a mulch, because that's a new system that I'm trying to test out and put in place here. Not having to go create mulch, haul it somewhere and put it on. If you can grow your own mulch and just roll it down, you're good. And from what I've seen in some of the no-till operations, rye is an excellent crop for that. It's also allelopathic, so it'll kill out other weeds and plants in there. And then when you get to the right point in the life cycle of the plant, you roll it flat, and then you have this nice mat of mulch with no weeds, and you can plant right through it. So that's kind of the long-term goal. Alright, I think I've babbled on about farming plenty long enough. I hope you found this interesting or informative. This has been sort of a little bit longer video, but kind of feel like I needed to do a solid update. A lot's been going on, and I haven't really had a chance to catch up on YouTube. Thanks for watching the Pharmacy Seeds Network.